think that if one believes that part of the value of a healthy sports program is that it puts the institution's identity, work, interest in front of a large public, then one has to use the bully pulpit that a great sports program can provide. A lot of the conferences, the ACC, the Big Ten in superb ways, the Pac-10 conference, a lot of them use some of their advertising time to spotlight university programs, research programs, public service programs, and so on. That may seem like a small thing, but in fact those are very expensive minutes, seconds. For that commitment to be made, somebody has to be willing to say, we will in fact use this pulpit in this way. The more concrete things, I'm persuaded that there is no reason to keep employment agreements secret. That when money changes hands within the large shroud of the university, the transaction has to be clearly public, clearly visible. And that a lot of our problems in intercollegiate athletics have to do with this history of secrecy. There's the problem of making sure that donor identity with these programs is well understood. Who is in fact paying for what and why? Who's receiving a benefit? The NCAA's rules about improper benefits to students often get criticized in the sports pages for being picky. They're not really. They are in fact definitions of the responsibilities held by other people. The sad part of the transaction is that the student winds up holding the bag. And the difficulty in a way is that the NCAA has a natural relationship with the coaches, with the students, with their institutions, but not a natural relationship with the interested parties around who might be prepared to do the wrong thing. Over the years, when I have watched programs get into trouble, especially when I was serving on visiting committees, the secret transaction has always been the core of what's rotten. When the public can see what's going on, when anybody who cares can get the facts and be satisfied as to their accuracy, there's a lot less chance for conflict of interest, a lot less chance for self-dealing, defined in any way that's appropriate, to come in. I think that the process of mutual self-regulation that seems to be our model for governing this kind of activity is always vulnerable to secrecy. And that because the regulatory process covers such a vast field, not all of our colleges and universities are involved in intercollegiate sport. We have something like 4,600 colleges now in this country. That's a huge range of institutional types and so on. To regulate a kind of competition that is not intellectual or workplace competition, but is something else, that generates large amounts of money, that spends large amounts, that attracts various kinds of external interest, is a challenge. I think anybody who has worked through a process of, say, U.S. governmental regulation knows that that's not a solution for problems that turn up in athletics. And I doubt that very many people would suggest that the states can do it because the population is a national one. Boards can do it. Board members can be properly educated and trained for the work they do. They can deal substantively with the nature of their responsibility. They can take seriously the affirmative allegation that the president gets it right in hiring athletics directors and improving deals with coaches, in proposing the priorities that determine which structure gets built or remodeled next. We don't have a great system of board education for that responsibility right now. We should. board members and institutions that have intercollegiate sport really ought to be seeking that kind of constant training. And the fiduciary aspects of it, we take pride in the fact that our boards are lay boards. And in modern times, we often talk about how important it is that corporate leaders and others with large civic responsibilities are participating in our boards. In a corporate board setting, if a member wants to be on a compensation committee or an audit committee or a governance committee, that member knows that she or he is also taking on responsibility to be trained constantly in how to do it right. We haven't quite gotten there with regard to board responsibilities for intercollegiate sport. Just as surely as we had to get there with regard to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act a decade plus ago, we have to get there with regard to board compliance with standards of good behavior for athletics.